Go for it. Yeah.
All right, so 2014, my number 3 would be the Lego Movie.
It's a good choice.
That's great.
It's on my list. It was fun.
All right.
It was such a fun movie. I like animated stuff, and it doesn't normally make my top, but the Lego folks just do such a good job with the comedy. What was the Goofy song?
Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome.
It just gets in your head. You can't help but smile throughout the damn movie.
Yep.
Batman is hilarious in this movie. Just all together, love it. Kind of goes back to some of their video games,
I
like
love
Lego
their
Star
games.
Wars.
All the Telltale games, they're just awesome.
They
Yeah.
just have cutscenes between gameplay that was always really funny, and it translated over to the movie. Thought Lego Movie was awesome.
And of course, there's Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not mention your
Okay,
favorite
I'm an
actor.
apologist for Will Ferrell.
Okay,
yes.
exactly.
The Lego Movie was a movie that I did not want to see, and then Maggie drugged me to see it, basically, and I was so fucking glad that I actually saw it. It was funny, like you said, I smiled through the whole thing. It was
Yeah.
Yeah. See what happens when you listen to me?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah, there were a lot of catch me off guard comedy moments in that movie that and the introduction of Batman, and that's sort of like what spurred the whole Lego Batman movie itself, was just spurred off that 20 minutes of screen time that he had in that movie, because he stole the show, basically.
Well, so much, spoiler alert, 2017 Lego Batman is on my list.
Oh,
So,
Yay.
Okay.
Nice.
'cause it's amazing.
yeah.
I haven't seen the Lego Movie 2 yet.
I haven't either.
I haven't either.
No. Did anybody see Ninjago? The Lego
Yeah, it
Ninjago
actually wasn't
movie? I
bad.
heard that was pretty good, too.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Why
Yeah.
did so many people skip the Lego Movie too? I haven't met anyone who actually saw the damn thing.
I don't
I
know.
don't
Is it a real movie, Miguel?
It
Does it really
exists.
exist?
Let's see.
Yeah.
It's called Lego Die Repeat.
Lol.
She's back.
But wow.
Oh, well, I hate to follow up after that. Well, especially mine's so serious. My third overall pick for 2014 is Whiplash.
Nice. I still have it at home and I haven't watched it.
It's
I want to
okay.
see it so bad.
It's it really kind of, I like it so much because it reminds me whenever I was in high school band, the teacher slash like band director is played by J.K. Simmons, and it is a very intense role. And Miles Teller is like the up and coming drummer musician that's in the band. And I mean, J.K. Simmons is like just out of nowhere. He's just throwing fucking chairs. He's throwing books at people. He's calling them pieces of shit. And I mean, whenever I was in band, my music teacher was not that intense, but he was still pretty fucking intense.
He would probably be fired if he was that intense.
He was like,
He was fired?
No.
no,
Oh, okay.
he wasn't fired. He was pretty intense. I don't know. My band teacher was, I'm not gonna mention any names.
So this movie has a little sentimental...
Oh yeah, no, it definitely, like, whenever I was watching, I was like, oh, yep, I definitely thought that kid that was getting a chair thrown at him or a book or something could
Deserved
have
it?
been me.
Oh.
No, not deserved it.
Oh.
God damn it.
I just really like J.K. Simmons, and I don't know why I've never seen this movie. It's always been on my radar.
Same here.
I just I don't know, haven't seen
Yeah.
it for whatever reason.
It's I really enjoyed it. I have a lot of people that watch it that didn't like it, but I think that, like, Miguel's shaking his head over here.
That's fine.
But I don't know, if you want to see like just any type of person that is super fucking intense and passionate about what it is, and just how that kind of intensity, like what is actually allowed as a human being to project that onto another person.
Conviction.
Yeah, it's a good movie to watch. So I thoroughly enjoy watching it, but that's also because it's me reminiscing too. So
Yeah. That's why Morgan likes the Lego movie too.
Right.
It's
Nostalgic?
sentimental. Yeah, it's
I've been playing
nostalgic.
with Legos my whole life.
Yep.
Off.
There you
Yeah.
go.
he sings "Everything Is Awesome" in his office all the time.
I bet he does.
I do like that song. I thought about putting it on
catchy.
as a ringtone. Yeah,
It's a catchy song for a
Yeah.
reason. Whenever I hear that song, I actually start singing the lyrics to Kelly Clarkson's "Since You've Been Gone," because melodically it's the
very
same
They
structure.
are.
It is,
and,
yes, very similar.
Yeah, it just blows my mind how that happens. But anyways, Ramona hates it.
Buster?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. My third pick for 2014 is Nightcrawler.
Is that the Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, I absolutely love Nightcrawler. I remember it was one of those movies. After I watched it, it was so dark, and it's such a messed up movie. But I remember wanting to see it right after that again. I think Jake Gyllenhaal. It was a chance for people to see, if you hadn't seen him before, what an amazing actor he is. And all the little nuances to the movie will freak you out if you pay close attention. One of the things that he did is he became almost anorexic for that role. He lost all this weight, and they asked him, why did you want to look so gaunt? And he had said, I want to look like a starving or hungry coyote.
Yeah.
He
Lifelessness.
wanted a lifeless scoundrel like.
He lets the job take over his persona and sort of loses any attachment to humanity. I remember that movie. That was a good movie.
I absolutely loved it. And at the time, I was still at ASU. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was actually.
we were here.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I think I graduated a couple years after that. But it reminded me of people I met at ASU that were these sort of media moguls, that they wanted the shot so bad. They wanted, the basically the scoop so bad. Yeah, Oliver remembers those people too. They were assholes. But they were willing to do some really desperate things. I remember talking to people that were stringers. Mm-hmm. They would do that. Mm-hmm. They would literally listen to the police radio and they would look for horrible accidents to happen to go get that shot. I remember those kind of people freaked me out. I was like, wish they would make a movie about these kind of people. And they did.
Sure enough, yep.
And I think it really hit the mark. Again, so it's one of my favorite movies of the whole decade, much less of 2014.
Very nice. Solid choice.
You guys, has anyone else ever seen that movie?
Yeah, I have actually.
No.
Yeah.
Loved
You
it.
definitely got to check it out, man.
All right.
Yeah, the creepiness factor is incredible, really. Just watching him go from start to end is pretty good. They did a really good character building with that.
It increases in intensity too.
It really does.
This goes to your point of the folks that want that job and the ones who are starving for the I guess the vanity of it, which is getting that shot and getting the notoriety for getting that shot. In this movie, it starts off very like car accidents and small stuff that he picks up on the police radio, but it evolves into like him seeing a robbery live and in action that goes awry.
A murder as well.
I thought the robbery and murder coincided.
One of them was a home break-in.
It was a home break-in where a
Yeah.
couple of folks got shot, and and then he walks in like literally seconds after it happens, and he's just filming people
Before the
dying.
cops get there, they're still dying, and
Yeah.
he's getting the shot.
And
Oh,
actually,
Lord.
that's a very it's a very timely movie to watch now, because now you've got these. This movie takes place in the 70s, I want to say.
No,
80s?
it was
this
modern
is
times.
Modern times,
day?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like the News Wars, Rene
I'm confusing it
Rousseau's
with
character,
Manhunter for some reason.
I think you
You
are,
know?
Yep.
which is 80s.
who kind of knows something's not right, but still putting it on the air and giving him money. Yeah.
Very timely in that sense, and the whole TMZ wave of folks where they're already on the scene and breaking
Before
the
the
news
cops
before
get
the
there.
cops get there.
Yeah.
It's it speaks on that life and gives us sort of a POV into that perspective that we wouldn't have if it weren't for a movie like Nightcrawler.
Yeah, one thing I like about it too is that he has an arc. He's sort of his own hero at the end of the
Yeah.
movie, but he's as worst as he's ever
Yeah.
been as a human being.
Right. Good one.
So my third choice is going to be kind of controversial, I think, because a lot of people hate this movie. But I got to go with A Million Ways to Die in the West.
I left it off of my list
I
because I knew you would put it
Love
up.
it. I love it. It's like
So
I
awesome.
kind of have a love-hate relationship with Seth MacFarlane because I feel like he takes something to where it's funny and then he keeps going and pushes it until it's just dead.
Cringy.
Yes, and I hate that. Like Family Guy, I'm just done with it. Yep, that exactly. The Orville I love, but for A Million Ways to Die in the West, I just think is hilarious. I laughed through the entire movie, and I don't know.
I hated the entire movie. Sorry, Heather.
It's okay. It's
Oh,
okay.
seen it
you're
once.
nuts.
Maggie
You're
wanted to leave the
absolutely
freaking
nuts.
room when I made her watch it.
I didn't
Sure.
expect
Wow.
anything
No, it's
from it.
No, it's not. You didn't make me watch. Like we both wanted to watch it, but like probably 20 minutes into it, I was like, "It's such trash." I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Heather.
It's okay.
But
No.
I mean, and Morgan, I don't care.
Maybe
I thought
Not everyone gets comedy. It's okay.
whatever.
I think that was
Okay,
a product
Lego.
of hype in a way because
Movie over there.
Seth MacFarlane's name attached to that at that time it was
huge.
It was huge.
It is,
yeah.
but his name attached to something makes me go, I don't know, I'm either going to love this or I'm going to hate it.
Fair
It's
enough.
not a guarantee this is going to be fantastic.
Fair enough.
And I feel like, I'm sure there were some moments in this movie where he did that, where he took things a little too far, but overall I felt like I liked the story, I liked the comedy, I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a funny movie.
I liked it too. There were scenes in it that had me on the floor. Whenever she puts a flower in what's his name's ass.
Right?
He's an Oscar-nominated actor.
Yes.
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson.
I remember
Puts a
that.
flower in his ass. And
One of the few parts I unfortunately remember. That
Yeah.
movie.
there's scenes in that movie that had me on the floor just laughing, and there were other scenes too that I was just like, it's really cringy. It's not funny. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maggie, I'm there with you, but I can appreciate it for
You're Canadian.
what it is. It's
It's the Canadian bias.
Yes.
No.
Like I said, it's controversial. I knew it
Yeah.
would be, but I liked it.
1 million ways to die. in
No,
this.
kudos. Yeah, Cojones mentioning that one. That's great.
Nice. Well, I'm going with the safe bet here at number 2, in my opinion. This is Ex Machina, directed
my
by
gosh, so
Alex
good.
Garland, who has been
I have
on
that
a
on my 2015 list. Is
tear
that
ever since.
2014?
I believe this is 2014 theatrical release.
Oh,
Where's the fact checker?
checkers.
Fact checker.
The EX Machina.
With Oscar Isaac.
2
Yeah.
words.
This says
Oscar
it was
Isaacs.
April 24th, 2015.
IMDb's
well,
got it at
IMDb listed as a
2014.
2014. Maybe it was
It's
making
because it was
the
on that
independent
flip of the
circuit.
year.
It was on the independent circuit and put out for all of the summertime festivals
Count that,
and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I caught wind of it in 2014. I don't remember when I actually watched it.
Oh, we saw it in
could've been
theaters. It was
2015.
so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw it in theater too. I think
I had it on my next
it was
year
a
list.
Yeah.
it was a
Opening
It's
weekend is
A24
listed
movie.
as
Yeah, it was. That's one of the
April
good
of
ones.
Yeah.
2015.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, my list is pretty much just fragmented then. But you know what? I can actually talk about the movie that I crossed out instead of Ex
No,
Machina.
you're good.
No,
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna say just chop all this off. This whole Ex. Sorry, I should have double checked all of these.
okay.
No,
You're
you're
not
good.
ever starting again.
All of chop all of Ex Machina off, and I'm gonna talk about John Wick. So yeah.
I knew you would.
All right.
I knew this was
I-
something you were going to bring to the table.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can talk a lot about John Wick because there's a lot going on in John Wick. It, in my personal opinion, it re-energized the action genre for the decade completely. Because previous to then, I can maybe count 1 or 2 movies that were sort of that urban gun action driven solo led action movie genres, and then John Wick comes along and takes all of the best parts of the hero's journey and adds the characters, the backstories, the intrigue of the world, which was kind of like the main grip of that movie, and the main catch is that this world that all of these characters are inhabiting is sort of almost a fantasy world where, and it's supposed to be, right? They're all assassins. They're getting these contracts put out for each other, and everything's just going haywire for this one guy who all he wants to do is get revenge for his dog. Another spoiler alert. And then it evolves into a lot more and spurs multiple sequels because of all of these parts that weren't fleshed out in the original. Left the audience wanting to see more of. For example, the Intercontinental Hotel inclusion and everything that goes on within those walls. We get maybe 15 to 20 minutes of it in John Wick 1, whereas it's sort of the backbone of the second one, in my opinion, and the internal politics that are going on there. So John Wick is not your typical action movie, and that's probably why I like it so much, because at the same time, it is your typical action movie. There's a lot of gun action. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of just breakneck. It's a breakneck pace, and for it to mix actual deep story and deep characters into the whole thing, it was a unique experience. For
Are we
me.
calling Keanu Reeves' character deep? Just checking.
John Wick's got layers to him for sure. Probably, I would say next to Neo, his deepest character. ever, unless you count the. Oh, maybe you count the. Okay, that's deep too. You know, Keanu Reeves doesn't get a fair shot when it comes to his acting chops because people remember him for like Day the Earth Stood Still and very like
The Lake House.
Yeah,
it's Bill and Ted that ruined him.
Yeah, perhaps.
Well, the sequel's coming for that one
too. I saw.
Yep.
He had some.
He's awesome in The Replacements. That's probably his deepest character.
He's almost,
the backup quarterback.
That is not a bad movie, though.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a
Damn
good
it.
It was a good movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah,
Are you kidding
Keanu
me?
Reeves. Another tidbit of information. I think that was a spark for his career too in the second half of what's turned into a pretty strong decade for Keanu Reeves, and now everybody loves Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he's the it guy again, and he was at one point trending towards that. And maybe the Matrix, holding on to the Matrix series a little too long, sort of took that away. And then he went on his romantic comedy binge, and then he came back with John Wick, and it was the Keanu Reeves like everybody wanted to see again, because he was very Neo-esque as far as style is concerned, as far as movements
With
and
gun
all
fu.
of that. Yeah, exactly.
Gun fu.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Yeah,
What I liked about John Wick is that it's Keanu Reeves doing these long action fight scenes, and it's not a stunt double. So
It's him.
It's actually him,
Getting hurt,
and the world that they created, full of assassins, is really cool because it
Yes.
can literally be anybody that's
Yes.
in this world. But the action fight sequence, I feel like, really upped the action movie game after John Wick came out because the budget was tiny.
Yeah, it was minimal compared to other, action movies because it's all grounded. It's all like realistic action. There's no CGI. There's no no added effects or anything like that. The settings are what cost that movie probably a lot, and then it got intensified with the second one because that goes all over the world. And I haven't seen the third one yet.
It's great. We just saw it.
I just saw it.
Didn't you buy the box set?
No, I just showed you a picture of it. That's it. I just took a picture of the movie I bought that day, but unfortunately,
we watched
I
the
don't
movie
watch.
because you sent a picture was talking about needing to include
Yeah,
it on the
we need to revisit our trilogy, and
Oh,
I thought I was
shit.
going to watch that night too, but it didn't pan out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I do own the movie. I just haven't seen the third installment, which I hear great things.
It's
Obviously,
good.
Yeah. So John Wick,
Good choice.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
movie.
Solid.
All right, my number 2 for 2014. I went with This Is Where I Leave You. It is a dark comedy.
What the hell is that?
I've heard of it.
Yes,
I've
tell us
absolutely
more.
This is Jason Bateman, Tina Fey, Jane Fonda, Adam Driver, Rose Byrne, Catherine Hahn. Timothy Oliphant has a part in it. Dax Shepard has a part in it.
And they have a family member die.
Yeah, so dad dies. Jane Fonda's mom and all the kids are coming back, basically living for a week all in the same house. And they all have their own little individual problems that they have in life. For example, Jason Bateman's a producer for a radio show, and the talent's Dax Shepard, and Dax Shepard's sleeping with Jason Bateman's wife. And he finds this out just before he's going home for the funeral. So he's kind of dealing with his wife cheating on him with his boss, his dad dying, and then all the other family stuff that's going on during that time. So it's a comedy. There's some funniness to it, but there's also a lot of real grit to it. Things that people are going through every day. And it's all in one thing. Jane Fonda's kind of an oversharing mom. I think she's an author that's wrote a book about like some of their sexual exploits or something.
Of her own kids?
Yes.
What the?
Or she's been really open with about the family, but it's a really interesting movie. Like I said, dark comedy. It's not for everyone. Not everyone's gonna think some of that stuff's funny, but it really is.
But they're wrong. It's funny.
It is. It's wrong. It's wrong, but it's funny. Usually, if it's wrong, it is funny. But anyway, really good movie. I thought more on the serious side for me. I guess a little bit of serious, a little bit of comedy. Nice mix. Good cast. Thought it was well written.
Yeah.
Definitely one. If you haven't seen it, you probably want to go back just to check it out and see what it's about.
Yeah, I remember hearing the name of it. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I will definitely add it to my list.
Yeah, I saw it whenever it came out. Like I haven't revisited it, but I remember seeing it whenever it came out. So I'll watch anything.
Oh, and of
Tina
course,
Fey's
I mean, it's
in.
got Jason Bateman in it.
Yeah, that's another one.
favorite.
I apologize for all the time.
Yeah.
His greatness. I'm sorry.
I sense a Bateman Farrell sort of trend here in your favorite movies of the decade, and that's okay. They're one of them's a really good actor.
We'll leave it up to you as to which one it is.
Sure, I don't mind. Go ahead.
No, it's all right.
It's Will Ferrell.
Have you seen Holmes and Watson yet, guys? I mean,
No,
the
not yet.
acting chops in that one.
Okay, I
All
enjoyed
come
it.
from John C. Reilly.
I enjoyed it.
I know.
I enjoyed it.
Really? So you actually saw that Holmes and Watson?
I did.
I heard it was like a Funny or Die skit that wouldn't die. But there's some people
Maybe to a certain extent, I guess, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. Thought it was funny. Now, is it one of their best movies? No.
No,
But there are definitely very funny scenes.
It's not Step Brothers,
in
in
that
other
show.
words.
It's no.
Oh,
It's
okay.
nowhere near that.
fucking
Aw.
classic.
And
Step Brothers.
it's slapstick. I mean, it's goofy, dumb, and if you don't like goofy, dumb comedy, like Sasha,
Oh,
you're not gonna appreciate the movie.
I love Goofy Dumb. I love Ace Ventura.
No,
I
you-
love Dumb and Dumber. I love Jim Carrey Goofy Dumb.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell, to me, when he came along, I wasn't ready for Jim Carrey to be done with Goofy Dumb yet. And then here comes this guy who's
The Mask did not just ruin you on Jim Carrey.
No.
How
no,
dare
he had a
you.
run well after that,
My
too. I think Me,
gosh.
Myself, and Irene was
a hit.
afterwards, and that was
Was
that was
Liar
pretty good.
Liar after the mask?
Liar,
I
Liar.
Oh
love
my
that
God.
one.
Yeah.
Liar,
Even-
Liar.
So good.
Even
so
fun
bad.
with Dick and
Oh,
Jim.
no,
You see,
so funny.
terrible.
You see, now we're getting into the
All
gist
right,
of it
get out of
because
here.
his comedy, his version of slapstick is a little different than my version of slapstick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jim Carrey happens to be Canadian, by the way, so maybe
Oh,
It's a bias.
But
I love Jim Carrey. I'm not Canadian.
I like him too,
I know.
but
Same.
Grew
I
up
think
with him.
he's like in the same sense that you know, I lost my train of thought.
Will
See,
Ferrell?
what happens when you get old? You start to lose your train of
Train of
thought.
thought?
he did it again.
Yeah, with you know how Seth MacFarlane can drive something into the ground. Jim Carrey's the exact same way with the same voices, the same faces, the
Wow.
same
Yeah.
body movements. He will kill something so much it becomes really annoying actually.
Wow.
It's true.
There are moments of that.
And a
in
lot
his
of that
movies.
stuff, like Liar Liar, to me is so kiddie driven. There's not a lot of adult humor.
Oh, well, don't worry. That was just a 10-year segment of his career. And then we got into Truman Show, Number 23,
Oh, so good.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. See, Jim Carrey is an actor. Will Ferrell is a comedian. I think that's the
difference.
the difference. And I'm not saying Will Ferrell's movies are not good slapstick. They really are. But he was like he took the good parts of Carrey's slapstick and he added.
How are we on Will Ferrell?
Well, we went from Bateman to Ferrell to Carey. Yeah,
We don't know.
Let's leave him alone.
that's it. Yep, that's all I gotta say.
alone.
Jason Bateman and Will Ferrell are on your list a lot, and I get it. They are good, high quality comedic actors.
I get Will Ferrell. It's like, hey, remember that movie where Jason Bateman plays a douche? It's like
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's like
You'll have to be more specific.
it's like you know that one where Melissa McCarthy plays an oaf.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
It's true.
yeah. He even plays a douche on TV too. Arrested Development.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ozark. He's even douchey in Ozark a little bit. It's just a douchey guy, maybe. in
Central Intelligence, his little bit role there.
general. Oh yeah.
Oh,
He is super douche
uber
there.
douche, yeah.
Super douche.
Well, I'm gonna get on with my second overall
Okay.
pick.
Yes, go for it.
I went with Maleficent. Y'all come at me. I'm ready. I will defend Angelina Jolie any fucking day. So
I thought it was really good, actually. It
Okay.
didn't make my top list, but I thought it was a good movie.
I-
Much better than I
I
expected.
thought it was good too. Just didn't make
Oh.
my honorable mentions,
Listen,
guilty pleasures,
I-
or top three.
I love Maleficent. I thought that Angie hadn't been in a movie in a long time before that, and I was glad she came back. And I was really happy to see a movie centered around a Disney villain because I always think that their backstories are way more interesting than the
Oh,
Disney
yeah,
princesses.
for sure.
Like going back and
Same old heroine. Every Disney movie. Same old
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. and like watching Disney movies as an adult and watching the princesses, I'm like, God, y'all are awful role models. I can't believe we like them. Yeah, a lot of them back in the day, especially Ariel from The Little Mermaid. God, But
But Ursula
she's
was
brat.
the shit, is what you're saying?
yes, Ursula is the fucking shit, man.
You can come at me. I love Ariel.
And-
Although Mulan is still my favorite, but
Yes,
she's a badass.
same,
So back the
same.
fuck off.
I think
But yeah, like I just love seeing I love that they're doing all these backstories on these villains.
are they?
Yeah, they're doing a
planning.
Cruella de Vil. They're doing an Ursula. Well, they're
Well, that's the Disney model, right? Is nitpick all
It
of
is.
the
Oh, yeah.
all of the details they can of the stuff
but they've
that we
had
love.
a TV show for a while, The Descendants. It's all the kids of the villains.
Oh,
I haven't actually watched it,
Yeah.
but it's been on like Disney Channel for years now. Yeah.
holy cow!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that one where one of the kids died. He had a seizure, passed away.
Is this on Disney Channel? Where is this?
I think it's on Disney Channel.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
like Descendants 3 just came out like not too long ago.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
haven't seen any of them, but I'd definitely be interested in watching.
Right. I'm intrigued. I just haven't watched it.
But yeah,
So
I
they're
thought
doing backstories for all the villains.
well, not all of them. Just they've
key
only
ones.
announced Cruella de Vil for now, which Emma Stone is going to play Cruella. They released a picture and
it's
everything.
good casting.
They're still casting. Well, they're remaking Little Mermaid, and they have yet to announce a Ursula. Which, if it's not Queen Latifah, I'm not in it.
Right. I'm so down for
Um,
that. Like, you have no idea.
Yes. But I haven't heard of any other Disney villains that they're doing at the moment. But it's gonna come. Like, I would love to see.
yeah, I
Hades.
mean, we're seeing a Lady and the Tramp live action, so
on
obviously we're
Disney
gonna get
Plus.
yeah,
Well,
But
they're also doing Maleficent too. Like that's
Which-
coming
that's
out.
true.
I
soon-ish.
I,
It's right around the
I
corner.
already have
Yeah.
advanced screening tickets for that.
Of course.
So- So,
Exhale.
Listen, I have a podcast. I'm going to talk about it early, and it's on my list. And I love Angelina Jolie, so again, I'm going to see anything that she's in. But
Fair enough.
but yeah, I love Maleficent. Carry on.
Okay. No,
Come at me.
Maleficent actually surprised me. It was another movie that I was like, I don't want to see this movie. They keep remaking their old stuff because Disney's so creatively bankrupt. I have no intention of seeing this movie, and I like the hell out of it.
Yeah.
But you'll watch the shit out of Marvel movies, so I don't.
What the hell's that got to do with anything?
You can read the comics, so don't say that Disney's just
Oh, no,
remaking
no,
shit
that's
because
Man, oh,
completely
man.
different. That's
that is not completely different at all.
Disney hasn't remade Bambi.
Not yet.
Oh,
It's
that's
coming.
that's
It's
on their
coming.
list.
Every single Disney classic is going to be remade in the next decade.
Fox and
Every
the
single
Hound.
one.
They can't remake Fox and the Hound.
Oh my
They'll
god.
do
Nobody. Well,
They
it wasn't a
can't.
big enough. It wasn't a big enough box office draw the first time around. They're
Well,
only
good.
sort of tapping into the stuff that was 200 million and up.
Yeah.
in my
They're just
opinion.
trying to ruin our childhoods. It's all good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they shouldn't touch Fox.
Well, they have in the scientific realm, they have the sample group already out of the way, which is the kids from the 70s and 80s and 90s, and so now they can pull all the data from us of stuff that we're still talking about and still interested in and say, oh, let's just take all of these interests and ideas and morph them into what the kids like these days, which is live action and renditions. Because the animated stuff, if you go back and I try to sit my 3-year-old down and watch 101 Dalmatians, she kind of gets bored of it pretty quickly.
Whoa.
She gets bored of some other older animated films because the animation's the part that we're associated with and nostalgic over, but the new batch of children that are in the Disney pipeline, I don't think they click with that old style animation like we did.
I wonder why. Because I grew up loving Aladdin before that.
That's because you didn't have the internet. Yeah, you didn't.
Still though, like
I don't think they're making a lot of cartoon stuff anymore.
Oh.
Like, there's not a lot of.
There's just not a lot of
cartoon
hardcore old school
TV.
animation. Yeah.
that's so crazy. Because I remember, I wonder if other studios are going to take note of that too. Like, are we going to see Oliver and Company and Five Goes West and all these other classics that we grew up with?
All dogs
Turn
go
it-
to heaven.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
no.
I
They
hope not.
better not touch that,
No.
man.
There's
They're
some
gonna
stuff
touch
they
it.
need to stay away from for sure, but they won't because there's
Nothing
a
is
precedent
sacred
for
to
it
them.
now.
It's
yeah.
sacred to us, but not to them at all.
No.
Because they're like, oh, we can make money off this. People are nostalgic and
Hell no.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
I just saw Audrey Hepburn's ghost in a fucking Dove commercial for chocolate. No, nothing sacred. It's horrible. Casey or Cary Grant
Yeah.
running around with a vacuum in his hand.
Yep.
Like if they're
Yeah.
gonna remake The Dead.
Yeah.
They're gonna remake our cartoon
It all
classics.
started with like CGI Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And Terminator stuff.
Salvation.
Yeah, you can deep fake actors into movies very easily and very readily now. All the Tom Cruise, Iron
yeah.
Man videos,
Well,
all that shit.
They did a deep fake for Tobey Maguire in Endgame.
Oh.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and people are
Whoa, I didn't
gravitating
see that.
towards
That's-
it.
that makes me nauseous.
It's nuts.
People are
So
liking
weird.
this stuff. There's a demographic that is like very captivated and intrigued by it. I've watched a couple of them, but they're going to find out that these videos over time have millions and millions of views, and the studios are going to tap into that and say, "Well, let's just make a ensemble cast of a bunch of
Bunch of
60s
dead guys.
actors and 70s actors. Let's spit it back out. Let's remake Gone with the Wind. Let's remake
Bullet.
all this shit." Yeah, and
Oh, that's going to be
That's what
disgusting.
That's what they're doing with Leia in Star Wars.
Exactly.
She's still there.
we're witnessing the
Space
de-evolution of creativity
Yeah.
via Hollywood. They're sort of giving us a perspective of how dry the well is over there and how
Yeah.
little there is to pull from and original
Well,
ideas.
I don't know that the well's dry. I think, no offense to anybody listening, but you guys are sheep. You keep going back and you keep paying money to watch this regurgitated crap.
Yeah.
That is
I have not seen any of the
I
remade
mean,
Disney
why
movies.
should they think of anything new if they can just reissue old stuff and everybody still goes and buys it? There's
Yeah.
no reason for them to do anything new. When you have a new original idea, you spend $150 million on the movie and it only makes $100 million in the theaters, and
that.
no one wants. Yeah, no one
You're
wants
right.
to go back to see it. So, I mean, there's a big,
But I also
kind of
think that's
both
where
ways.
kind
It's
of-
supply and
like
demand at the
kind of
end of
both
the day.
ways.
and-
But I mean, seriously,
and
why?
Hulu and things like that come in because they can make things that maybe wouldn't make it into the theaters that are more original. Whereas the big studios, they're going to go
True.
after their big cash cow properties.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're saying there's like forced creativity outside of Hollywood
Yeah.
for like
Oh, yeah.
for stuff like on TV, on streaming, on the internet.
Well, we talk a lot about A24, like in our own circles. You guys are big
Yeah.
proponents of what they're doing. I
Yeah.
love A24 stuff. I've liked their stuff for a long time. When those movies get theatrical releases, they make peanuts. They make very small amounts, and this goes to what Morgan was saying: is the audience for creativity and we're speaking from the minority here and what we want to see from big screen stuff, and it doesn't. Our opinions on the matter don't really weigh with the Hollywood executives who have these $150 million CGI budgeted films and need to recoup all that money in one fell swoop. They know how they're going to do it, and it's with trash.
Well, did you ever watch any of the Oats Studios stuff?
No, but it's available online now. so
Yeah,
I'll check
it's
that out.
all. It's so good. It's,
What is that? Like,
It's
what is
Neil
it? consist of?
Blomkamp.
Yeah.
Oh,
Neil Blomkamp.
District
It's-
9. 's
Yeah,
good.
District
Independent
9, all
stuff.
that. It's all this independent stuff that he did. Like Sigourney Weaver's in the first one,
Ooh.
and they're so good. They're just these little like sci-fi short films, and they're all about different things. And
So it's kind of like Black Mirror, kind of.
it kind of, but he put it all out like on YouTube. I mean, it's all just
What the hell?
Now available
Yeah.
on
Awesome.
Amazon Prime.
Also that.
Yeah, I think it's Amazon
What,
Prime.
Yeah.
what,
that's
what is
got
it called?
It's called Oats Studios.
Oh wow! Now I'm watching the shit out
Yeah,
of that.
it's
Volume
worth it.
1,
They are
which
so
is
good.
which is intriguing. Volume 1. That means there's more
Yeah.
down the way.
Yeah. There's a couple of misfires on some of the shorter films, but overall, it's a really good collection.
I'll have to check that out. Now that we're done shitting on the lack of creativity from
Yes,
Hollywood. I honestly don't remember
exactly.
where we are. Where are we 2 or 1 were we?
You
We're
are
at
on
year
number
number
two.
two. It's all because of Maggie, and it's all her mention of Maleficent, which is probably one of the better Disney movies in the last decade.
Yes,
Oh,
agreed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
You're welcome, everybody.
But it still taps into the same discussion we had, where the lack of creativity
it does,
exists.
but I think in that case, it's something coming from a different angle.
Yes, and
We're not just remaking the same movie. We're
Yeah.
saying, hey, look at this character that was in this film. Let's see her story and what got her to that point.
Yeah, I respect that a
So-
lot more than just remaking
Just
the
remaking
classic.
Yeah,
the
for
shot,
sure.
shot
All that.
remake, yeah.
now, whenever they remake Cruella,
I don't want to see a King Jafar origin
or whatever.
movie, though.
No.
don't need
oh well, I don't know. But Cruella, I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna get me to like somebody that likes to kill a bunch of puppies to make a coat.
Right?
So I don't know how that's
Yeah, I'm
gonna
not on
work.
board with that.
She's gonna be a big dog kid. She's gonna have hundreds of dogs and
Something
love
happens.
them, and something happens that just
Probably,
make
yeah.
the dog bites her on her hands in her sleep, and she
Better be
wakes
more
up
than that.
traumatized. Yeah, it does have to be more.
Code out a bunch of freaking puppies.
Anyway, sorry, Miguel. I didn't mean to
No,
cut you
no,
off again.
you're right. You got me back in on it. Now I'm more indignant
I
towards
know.
Disney.
All
Bastards.
right, so what's your number 2? Pick?
My number 2 is The Imitation Game.
Ooh,
No
That's a
apologies.
good film.
Absolutely love this movie. It's if you don't know the story about Alan Turing, it's so incredibly sad. I mean, this is one of the more important heroes of World War II. One of the most important
not
heroes,
the most.
if not the most. I
Yeah.
mean, not just of World War II, but when it comes to scientific innovation. I mean, what he was able to do for us.
Computers.
when it comes to computers, I mean, he is arguably the grandfather of everything we take advantage of right now when it comes to computing. And no one, how many people knew who he was before this movie? How many people don't even know who he was to this day?
Well, he's got a test, right?
Right, I was going to
Yeah.
say that's the only reason I
anybody
knew.
who's got a test
Yep.
is someone of significance.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very, very important figure. Essentially helped the Allies, us, win World War II. And he died almost completely broken alone. And he was really shoved under the rug by our government and the UK's government because he was a gay guy who, I mean, we didn't need to give a shit about at the time. You know.
Castrated too.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
chemically castrated because back then they went beyond just gay conversion therapy about praying the gay away. I mean, they would do things like chemical castration. They would do shock therapy. They would do terrible things to people. It didn't matter that he was a brilliant mind. It didn't
Right,
matter
he
that
was
he
still
was a hero.
flawed in their minds.
In their mind in that
and
time.
not good enough because of it, yeah.
Yeah, you're a bad human being. You're a flawed human being simply because you just happen to be freaking gay. Doesn't matter that you help us win the freaking World War. You know, so it's a really sad story, but it's also it's a beautiful one because when it comes to his relationship with Keira Knightley's character,
Oh, it's so good.
Who plays Alan Turing in the movie?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Ah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so did you see it?
I have not seen it. Nope. I just know of Alan Turing and the history, and I remember this
It's a
being on
good
the
movie.
Academy's radar that
Yes.
year and
So
winning
glad
a lot
it
of
was.
stuff, actually. I don't think it won Best Picture. It was certainly nominated.
I think did Benedict win for that?
No.
Okay,
No.
God, he should have.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite movies ever. I'm a World War II buff.
I'm
so
not
I
gonna
know I was
lie, he's
see it.
totally the reason I watched that movie because I'm obsessed with him.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic movie.
It was. I love Benedict Cumberbatch. You know, I think he's probably one of my favorite actors of the last decade. He can do something like that, and he can also kick ass in Marvel.
Yeah.
So good for him. Again, it's one of my favorite movies of the decade. I'm very happy to put it on my number 2. If you haven't seen it, for shit's sake, watch it as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's on my honorable mentions for sure.
Sold.
We're going to this direction, Miss Heather.
Yes. So I know I can't decide
It's
on
a
my
struggle.
order. It is. So I think I'm gonna have to go with.
Oh, man, this really is a
It
struggle.
is because I can't decide. I can't decide
I
between
mean,
1 and
A
2.
Million Ways to Die in the West was so easy.
I know, right? It really was. So I think I'm gonna flip things up a bit. I think my number 2 is gonna be Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
Oh,
mention.
nice.
Somebody had to
Because
say it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love this movie. I can watch it at any point in the movie. I can watch it start to finish. I can watch it just anytime it's on. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I feel like for being characters we didn't know anything about, it's such a great movie. It's got a great cast. It just
Great soundtrack.
yes, it.
Bradley
I don't know.
Cooper.
Yeah, I'm at a loss for words, even though I can't really feel like I can't say enough about this movie. It's just, I realize, yes, it's a superhero movie, it's a comic book movie, whatever, but it's also really a standalone movie. You could watch
Oh,
this
yeah.
and not have seen anything else, and you're still totally on board. You know what's going on.
Yes.
Up to that point, and
Yeah.
I'd argue still today, and maybe even the most emotional Marvel movie, as far as like the character story of Chris Pratt's character,
Yeah.
which I don't know
His
why I'm like
mom.
Star-Lord. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, his mom, his childhood, and then the world that he's in, and how he still holds on to his childhood, and he still holds on to the memory of his mom, and he's pushing towards reunion in some sense, and spoiler alert for the second one, getting to
Right.
know like the parts of his past that still exist in his future with his father and all that. So there's just a lot more going on in this movie, and not that the first one taps into all of it, the second one kind of does, but it brought something new to the table. And yeah, I remember watching this movie, and the soundtrack and the character development and the emotion of the characters is what set it apart for me up to that point. And
Yeah.
it was one of those Marvel movies that just made me like the direction of
Right. Well,
where
and
the
you
whole
kind of get
universe
that
was
right off
going.
the bat. You know, he comes in and he's like dancing through that place
Yeah,
trying
exactly.
to collect the
The little creature
thing.
thing.
Yeah, and, you know, and he's just.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of this irreverent scene, but it sets the tone for the whole movie.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It
Yeah.
sets the tone for
You
the
know,
entire movie.
And I feel like each of the characters are very well. They are very, very different, but they're just really well developed for being such. You
Mhm.
know, you're not introduced to them prior to this movie,
Right.
but I feel like you get a good sense of all of them.
yeah.
And Drax cracks me up.
Yeah, Dave
I
Bautista.
adore him. Yes.
Yeah.
He made a name for himself in that movie as
He
far
really
as
did.
acting is concerned.
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
skeptical. I'm skeptical of all the wrestlers turn
Yes.
turn actors. The Rock
Yes.
sort of set himself
Come on.
apart as
Stone
well.
Cold.
Stone Cold's been in a lot of shit movies.
Yes.
I can't name you a good Stone Cold movie, although The Condemned's fun.
The Condemned, yeah.
it's fun.
What's the one with Adam Sandler? They're football players. He made like a small.
Longest Yard.
Wasn't terrible.
That was a remake.
That's a remake.
Yep.
Terrible remake.
But yeah, seeing Dave Bautista, not that he has to flex his acting chops, but it's more of his comedy chops
Oh,
as
Yeah.
Drax.
Which
So
is hard.
Yeah,
funny.
it is hard for like this brute 350-pound like
Yeah.
muscle busting guy to flex his comedy chops, but he did it pretty effectively in that
And
movie.
I love Zoe Saldana.
Yeah, Zoe Saldana, hot off the heels of
So.
Columbiana, I think was her debut, and then she was in this, and actually she was in Losers too, which we mentioned back in
Right.
2010.
She was in Center Stage. That was my introduction
That was
to
her
her,
intro-
and I love that movie so much.
Avatar.
This was before Avatar. This was a long time ago.
Oh
Well,
dang!
like,
Yeah,
she
Avatar.
was-
Yeah, sorry.
Forget it's the same girl
she's-
too.
I
She
predate-
was,
she's been
but-
around for a while.
She's been in the game for a
Yeah.
while.
But you don't really see her. You know, she's a
Freaking
Oh,
alien.
that's true.
Bobby.
She is a
Yeah.
she is a blue-faced alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I
That's
gotta.
good.
And
go
she's a
Guardians.
green-faced
And then a
alien.
green-faced
in
alien,
yeah.
Guardians. That's probably what got her the
Because her
role.
sister was blue.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Nebula.
Guardians of the Galaxy is a modern classic. It is. I remember when I was watching the trailer too, because I remember Guardians of the Galaxy in the back of my head when I was a little kid. It's kind of running through their, their story when I was a little kid in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
I forgot about him. Who the hell remember Guardians of the Galaxy?
right.
Right?
And I saw the trailer. I'm like, they included the freaking raccoon. How the hell is this going
Right.
to be a good movie? And I remember DC fans were kind of kicking ourselves because, like, we can't get something grounded straight. These guys have made a movie with a talking tree
Yes.
and a talking raccoon, and it kicks
Everybody loved
ass.
it.
And
Right.
it's
Who doesn't love
smart.
Groot? Come on. Yeah.
Right.
It's one of the smartest, funniest movies ever made when it comes to being a comic book movie, and it has
Yeah.
a freaking raccoon.
Yeah,
A lot of
right?
that attributed to James Gunn and
For sure.
the writing and the
Yeah.
direction of
Yes.
that movie's on point. Don't know how many of you caught his debut,
Slither?
Slither,
Slither is
which,
great.
yeah, all-time horror classic
Yep.
there. With some actually, he's one of those directors that likes to take familiar faces
Yeah.
that he's directed and sort of migrate them to his new work. So Michael Rooker, who's really good in Guardians of the Galaxy, is awesome in Slither as well.
Yes.
He was on a tear when it came to screenplays, and he probably still is. I just haven't dug into what he's working on right now. I know he's doing Suicide Squad, which looks interesting. Yeah,
So, yeah.
awesome,
Sweet.
good choice. Yeah, definitely honorable mention. We're on numero uno now,
We
aren't
are,
we?
yes.
Okay, 2014. Just checking. Yep, 2014.
2014. Yes.
My number one is one of my favorite movies of all time, top 10 at least, and probably one of the more important movies to me personally. It's Interstellar with
Oh my
Matt.
gosh.
Hey, I'll argue this one with you all day because
I know you will.
Interstellar is an imperfect movie, but it's imperfect for reasons that are up to the audience. And I am an audience member of this movie, just like everyone else, and I tapped into the parts of it that were beautiful and the parts of it that spoke to me on a resonating human level. Now, this is 2014, so I'm not in my 30s yet, and I'm figuring things out as I go. And I've noticed this from my list of movies through this decade. I transition from action to a little less weighty to here we are in 2014, and Interstellar's number one on my list. Surface level, it's a sci-fi movie about interstellar travel and the discovery of other planets and all that. But there's tons more to it, of course. And now looking at that movie in hindsight, the part that gets me in my feels, so to speak, is the relationship that Matthew McConaughey has with his daughter. Yeah. And there's a scene that I remember and will always remember watching the trailer where Matthew McConaughey is driving away from his daughter, and he's in his truck and he's holding back tears, and it doesn't look like acting to me. It looks like Matthew McConaughey tapped into some real life experience there and some events, and he's holding back tears, and they're still filling up in his eyes because he's driving to the site that's going to take him into outer space, and he knows that the next time he sees his daughter, He'll be he'll be same age. She'll be in her 70s or 80s. That's the general gist of the movie, and that's what happens, of course, when you fly through the galaxy into interstellar space. There's even more levels to that movie that I can get into a little bit that make me love it. It's the way that movie ends, the relationship between time and the aspect of love playing a role in transcending time. These are fundamental human just emotions that I feel on a personal basis, and I felt going into Interstellar, but I didn't know how to visualize them, how to sort of put it out in the open. I had not met my wife. I didn't have a child. I was just a single guy. And this movie sort of paints a picture of what love can do. And eventually, in the end, the love that actually his daughter has for the father is what allows him to pursue this push into time, the arrow of time, so to speak, and that's how it's referred to in the scientific realm, is the arrow of time being linear from one spot to the other. And the end of this movie is him transcending that and sort of speaking into the past to himself and to his daughter, and setting everything up that the movie puts on full display. There's a lot going on that spoke to me on levels that no other movie this year or many other years ever did. And there's a lot of other stuff too, but I'll limit my time. There's the Hans Zimmer score that follows some crazy. I've never seen never heard a score that has layers to it itself. There's a scene where they're docking onto the Endurance, which is the name of the ship that actually takes them into interstellar space. So yeah, they launch in a rocket, they dock and then I think, Miguel, I think you remember what happens in this scene.
Yeah.
The score intensifies into this very Victorian era sort of organ piano, but it also has a metronome ticking, which is a symbol of the time being a constant that you're racing against in itself. And for that to be layered into a movie about transcending time speaks on the level of dedication and detail that was gone. I haven't seen the special features of this movie, but this is one of the movies that I want to watch the special features on eventually.
You need to.
You haven't watched the director's cut or anything?
There is no director's
Oh,
cut. This is it. The 2.5 hour version is it. If there were ever a director's cut, I don't know what it could add. That's one of the movies that I think just does everything perfectly.
I don't know, man.
From start to finish.
Christopher
I
Nolan
thought
doesn't really
this
come out with like
was
director's cuts.
Way overrated.
Why? Let's tap into it.
I don't know. When it comes to space movies,
There. When it comes
mean,
to space movies, that's all you needed to say.
Even when we come to time travel stuff, I thought there were a few things here that were disjointed, that didn't fit right, and I thought it really wasn't very imaginative in places, and it was very predictable in other places. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy Interstellar that much.
Well,
you
there's no
predicted that her dad was her ghost, essentially.
That's a pretty hard prediction to make.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody saw that coming. But here's the thing about that movie. I get it. As a space movie, it's not the best space movie. And as far as the science is concerned, there are a lot of loopholes in it. And the Michael Caine character...
Well, and I can overlook a lot of that stuff, too. I don't know. I wasn't overly impressed.
Okay.
And you know what? I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I could have been caught up in some of the hype of it. I can come back and revisit it. But I really walked away from this movie not really... I mean, it was a good movie, but I did not walk away thinking this is a great movie that I'll watch over and over
Yeah.
again, or that I'll really enjoy.
It took me 4 or 5 watchings to get to the point where I have it number 1 on my list. And I think we spoke about Interstellar maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah, we did.
And I was in that same wheelhouse where I wasn't completely sold on it. But I think that was before my daughter and before that life-changing moment too. And there are layers of movies that can't get tapped into until you have the resonance for them, I guess, so to speak, and sort of the relatability factor that plays into play, and the emotion of the father-daughter relationship. it does it better in that movie than I think I can even put into words, because I don't want to get sappy with it, but that's how I can put myself in McConaughey's shoes and see how tough all of those little steps would be in leaving her, even in her adult stage, to go do something that I felt was a bigger endeavor for the sake of all humanity, and to go do it but leave behind the one thing that you love the most. That's like, it's not tapped into very often, and it doesn't even have to be the father-daughter relationship to tap into that. It could be just the thing that you love the most, having to put that aside for the sake of something.
Yeah,
something
choosing
even
the greater good
more.
over your personal.
That's
Right.
in a lot of movies.
It is, but
It is.
that's fair enough. He liked.
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
I'm
what it
gonna interject in here really quick because actually
Interstellar's it's a very divisive movie for
it
sure.
so Interstellar is actually my number one pick of the year too.
Wow.
And I don't have any kids, so
Dang, see?
but I feel it on an emotional level. Where your favorite scene is, my favorite scene is also a Matthew McConaughey and his daughter moment, but it's adult Jessica Chastain, or his adult daughter who's played by Jessica Chastain. It's whenever he just gets off the planet where with the wave almost kills him.
Yeah.
And that's also the scene with the metronome
Yes.
music too. But what I thought was really good is because as they're traveling, they tell you, oh, it's been this many years since we've been gone. But you see it whenever he's going back and watching videos of his kids and Jessica Chastain comes on. She's like, this is the only video she's made since he's been gone. And she's like, I am exactly your age whenever you left. And, Matthew McConaughey is just sobbing. And she was like,
She still sort of has some not resentment, but
definitely.
It is animosity for him
Definitely
leaving.
resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you got it there.
Yeah.
But it's and it's incredibly sad because you're just like they really just went out there not knowing if they were going to come back.
Right. And there's the whole Casey Affleck dynamic too, who plays his son in the movie.
Yeah.
And there's that whole, son has to be stronger than daughter. And when McConaughey leaves to go into space, Casey Affleck becomes sort of the man of the house, and Murphy is under his advisement, and he even tells his son that McConaughey does, like, you got to take care of your sister now that I'm gone. And then to see his story unfold too, and his family, which is a heartbreaking story in itself, and what happens to them, those are the details that I'll leave to, because some people out there still haven't seen it or should revisit it, because it is one of those movies that does. Not many movies do this. They evolve over time and over a person's life and life experience. They do add layers to the viewing of the film and what you actually get from it. And maybe some more movies do that than I think, but this one does it very well. And I've seen it probably every year since. It's on my yearly watch list, and maybe that contributes to me like searching something out of the movie. But there's always something there that comes back. There's always something more that I get from it, and I can't ignore that, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm there with you too about the soundtrack.
Yeah. Nuts.
I have a whole movie soundtrack and that whole album. I know Miguel laughs because I listen to it all the time.
And the names are cool too. It's
Yeah,
like
Cornfield
Docking
Chase.
Bay, Cornfield Chase.
Day One.
Caution is the one you're talking about.
No Time for Caution. Stay, I think, is pretty emotional. That's when Murphy tells him to stay. And the titles of the scores.
And that's and I think that's another reason why it was my top, because, and another one for Inception too is that the music that goes with it.
Hans Zimmer as well, yeah.
Yeah, both Hans Zimmer.
Nolan. They've got chemistry.
Whenever a soundtrack can really just use that extra effort into making the movie better as a whole, it resonates more with me. So
you could probably watch those space scenes. Actually, I think the movie is low on dialogue when those scores set in and the visuals of them like docking and the actual space scenes themselves. There's not a lot of dialogue, but you can watch those pretty much start start to finish in like chunks, and it's its own movie that's sort of isolated from the story going on. It's one of those movies I could watch isolated score is what I'm trying to say.
All right, so I kind of jumped over you, Morgan. Sorry.
No, you're good. If it's your number one, it's your number one.
We can talk about Interstellar all day.
Yeah,
I
see
kind of
that.
agree with Morgan. I fell into the hype a little bit, and I thought it was really overrated. I've only seen it the once, though. I think we saw it in theaters.
So interesting commonality there, and also I get the hype because it was hot off the heels of the Dark Knight trilogy for Christopher
Well,
Nolan.
I didn't even see it in the theater, so I mean,
Oh my
it was
God.
HBO.
Well, that changes things too. If you
Wow.
see Interstellar in IMAX,
I don't need to see a movie in IMAX to appreciate it. I really
this is
don't.
one of this
this one-
of the maybe three that
Yeah, you coulda
deserves that stamp because I mean it's visually maybe the best representation of space that we get in cinema for another 10 to 15 years, in my opinion. And it's tapping into a lot of stuff that doesn't exist yet. This movie takes place in the 2030s, 2040s, so maybe some of the concepts don't add up because nobody's
we have
thinking
no
about 'em.
context for
Yeah,
it.
there's no
Yeah.
context, and that's people want that in their sci-fi movie. They want a little bit to resonate with and a little bit of forecasting, like, oh, I think that's possible. Oh, I think that's possible. This is something that should be where we're at as far as the movement of space is concerned, but instead we're still trying to go back to the moon for a second time, and we're trying to colonize Mars. And I get it.
You
Baby
gotta start
steps.
somewhere, man.
Baby steps. Right. But Interstellar kicks it up from A to Z and says, hey, if this happens to the Earth, this is what has to happen for anyone to survive. And the Earth part of the story is pretty daunting and pretty in tune with what could potentially be down the road in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Not saying that we haven't already seen it because the Dust Bowl has happened, and the Dust Bowl is a pretty strong parallel for what happens to the geographic landscape of where this movie is anchored in as far as rural Texas and some of the dust storms going on there. But anyways, that's all like to be determined and in the forecast, no pun intended. But yeah, I mean, I get all the criticisms that people
I'll
have with
revisit
this.
it.
Yeah.
I'll revisit it,
It-
and
it's
we can
worth
come
it.
back to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm gonna let you, Heather, read mine. Forgive my chicken scratch. I'm gonna
Well,
go ahead and let you.
it's his
Oh,
turn,
yeah,
because we
we
kind
hopped
of skipped
over
over
Maggie.
Maggie, or Maggie skipped over Morgan.
Well, yeah,
It's
because-
not
because they had
Interstellar.
to stop.
It's not Interstellar,
No.
folks.
Well, this is one of the few times I kind of agree with the Academy. Yeah, I thought Birdman was the best movie of 2014.
Yeah, that's on my kind of honorable mention list. It was a
Um,
great movie.
Now, I'm a huge Michael Keaton apologist.
Apologist for the Keaton.
No, he's a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes way back to the 80s for me. You know, Mr. Mom, Gung Ho, Dream Team.
One
all
good
those.
cop.
Batman.
Batman. And then this played on his Batman role a little bit,
Yes.
which I really
Yeah.
liked. Thought it was shot and directed very well, very unique.
Yeah.
Acting was great. I liked Edward Norton's character, kind of
Yeah.
being annoying and all that stuff. It was brilliant, I thought. Definitely one of the few times that I like movies that everyone else thought was really good, or at least the Academy thought
Right?
was really good.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely love Birdman. Now, there was not a single microsecond of that movie I wasn't entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You know, I absolutely loved it. It was weird in the best of ways. It was entertaining. Every second of it was entertaining.
Yes.
You had no idea is this guy gonna kill himself? Is he gonna blow up something? Is like is he gonna,
Right?
happy ending?
Yeah, you have no clue.
Yeah, that's what I had no idea how this is gonna end. I always smugly, even subconsciously, try to figure out. I think I know what's gonna happen here. You can't. You have. Is this whole thing a dream? Like
Right.
you have no freaking clue. Yeah, I love Birdman.
Yeah, it's a good choice for sure.
All right, well, we're going to trade movies to watch. You can watch Interstellar for a second time. I'll watch Birdman for the first.
I will let you borrow it. It's
All
good.
right, it
I'm
sounds good.
surprised you haven't seen Birdman.
The slipcover of the Blu-ray almost sold me because it was a red cover
Yep.
and it was real sexy looking, but I never pulled the trigger on it. I don't remember why exactly, but yeah, Michael Keaton, Ed Norton, and
Was it Emma Stone?
Emma Stone's in it
Stone,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole concept is right up my alley.
Well,
I don't know why I never saw it.
I'll admit, sometimes I'll look at movies like this and I want to watch them to tear them apart.
Okay.
Everybody says it's great. Everybody,
Right.
you know,
Or-
and
I
this
think
one,
that's what
okay,
steered
let me
me.
take a look at this. But this one was really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Long scenes.
Yeah, like long takes.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Also, Tarantino-esque long scenes. Not that drawn out.
Times 10.
Who directed Birdman? If we
It's
can
all one shot.
look that
It's
up.
implied it's one.
It is implied that it's one
freaking
shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the catch. That's the hook.
That's- yeah.
Alejandro
Alejandro.
Yeah.
Inarritu.
Yeah.
I think they Keaton
Yeah.
won right for actor.
He did The Revenant.
Oh, okay.
He did.
Which
He
has a
did
lot
a
of
lot
long
of
as
great
well.
stuff.
I think it won best movie.
Revenant?
That year?
I don't. know.
Yeah, it was best picture, directing, screenplay,
Best actor.
cinematography. So it was an actor. Keaton got nominated. But he
Oh,
didn't win.
Birdman. Oh,
Yeah, Birdman.
Oh, I thought we were talking about
Revenant.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Hold on.
he may be on a tear as far as the Academy is concerned. That guy.
Yeah.
Because Revenant is-
Revenant did not win Best Picture that year.
Okay.
Oh, what did Birdman?
I don't,
No, they're
It
different
didn't come out
years.
the
well,
same
it's
year.
2 different years, babe.
Okay.
I think Birdman won Best Picture.
Did
didn't
Birdman win Best Picture? I feel like it did.
I'm look-
It did.
Yes, it did. It won
Okay.
Best Picture.
I didn't have a problem with that at all. It was freaking great. I love it when weirdo movies like that get
Yeah,
acknowledgement.
it won quite a bit actually. It won,
Birdman.
yeah,
Yeah.
Best Picture,
4.
directing,
Yeah.
screenplay, and cinematography.
Yeah, it was,
And
good
was
movie.
nominated for a whole bunch more. But it
It's-
is a good movie. I'm with you. It's one of the
Yeah.
few times I agree with the Academy that it was a great movie.
Yeah, I have to go back. I'm sure there's been some along the way, but the one I really enjoyed was Gladiator 2000.
Yeah.
That was the last stand up and cheer that the Academy actually
Right?
went
Did
with
something right.
It was such a monster movie when Gladiator came out.
Yeah.
'Cause
It's
Everybody
hard
in
to
school
ignore.
saw it.
It was hard to ignore. Yeah.
Everybody saw that movie and talked about it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Where are we now?
You
Oh,
we
wow.
are at
You-
you with your number one.
Oh, we can talk
yeah.
about Interstellar.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Sasha, now that you
Oh,
mentioned
boy.
that.
Oh no.
Could you read what my number one is?
Drum roll, Heather.
Forgive my chicken scratch.
Interstellar.
Yes.
Oh.
It is
What a
absolutely.
solid choice.
So-
This is the synchronicity.
We're all riding that Christopher Nolan dick right now. Let's just do it. Like it's fucking amazing. What?
Well, I'm just saying, like, this is the first time that,
3 of us
Have
have
all
like,
seen-
the 3 of us had the
yeah.
same number one.
And the other
It's-
two of us are like totally out.
Yeah, no.
It's
Really just
interesting.
like, fuck you
It is
guys.
Exactly.
But that's an interesting discussion to have in general. Like, you guys have both seen the movie once, and I get it. Yeah, after once, I wasn't blown away.
Yeah,
I
could
wasn't.
be
It
it.
took multiple. I was blown away, but not for the same reasons that I'm blown away now. And it's because of the layers of the movie. But go ahead.
That's exactly why it's my number one. It's not just my number one of that movie. It's one of my number ones of all time, like personal favorite.
Ditto.
It's because there's layers of it. On a superficial level, you can say it's a space movie by the title, but it really isn't. It's about love transcending time, like you said, which people say, well, it's a corny concept. So what? They kill it. Christopher Nolan and his brother who wrote this movie are freaking brilliant. I mean, they were right off the heels of the Dark Knight, and I wasn't sure what to expect from this movie. They better be good. It's Christopher Nolan and his brother at the helm. John Lithgow and Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. Okay, you better deliver, and they did. It was freaking amazing. The sound, huh? John Lithgow played
Yeah,
the
he's the
father-in-law.
dad.
Silly, remember? He played the dad.
in rural
Oh, yeah,
Texas.
yeah. you're right.
And the other
I was
old
thinking
guy,
Michael
one of
Caine.
my
Michael
other
Caine.
favorite actors, Michael
Man.
Caine. Like the cast is absolutely
Supporting
amazing.
cast is so strong in that movie. Even
It is.
Jeffrey Wright, Matt Damon.
Jeffrey Wright. Where is Jeffrey
I want to wait.
Anne
What?
Hathaway?
I'm sorry, not Jeffrey Wright. A very similar looking actor, the guy who plays the third crew member. I don't know his name.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
right.
Jeffrey Wright for some reason. I don't know
Jeffrey
why.
Wright, no.
It's not Jeffrey Wright.
There's no weak link in this movie. I remember I was one of the first. You prefaced you saying you loved Interstellar by saying it's not the perfect movie. I'm trying to think of what is, because if this is not the perfect movie, what the hell is? It is like there's so many layers to it. There's so many things.
Yeah.
About it that I loved. The soundtrack worked really well. The message at the end worked really well. I don't see
David Geisy.
Oh, that's the Jeffrey Wright clone.
Yes.
All right.
what.
That's the actor. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
The third crew member on the ship.
I
not
thought
Anne
the
Hathaway.
blind ends up being a blind black guy.
No, the African American gentleman who's part of their crew.
Yeah.
He doesn't get a lot of shine.
Oh, okay. I know you're talking about Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah,
okay.
Jeffrey Wright's the guy from Westworld.
Westworld.
And he is not in Interstellar.
No.
But he should have been. It would have been a better casting.
Surprised he's not in a Christopher Nolan movie because he's that hipster
Yeah, he's
older
the Christopher
guy.
Nolan kind of character.
Yeah,
actor.
he would
Yeah.
be. No, again, I absolutely love Interstellar. It's one of those movies where I think to myself, God, the last time I think I can find this type of creative storytelling is either in a manga and it's in an old novel that no one knows about.
Yeah.
But to see this in a mainstream movie, this type of storytelling, I was so happy about it. I can get why some people didn't like it. I think for a lot of people, there was so much hype, and I think when you saw it, it just didn't have the same
Yeah,
kind
that
of
was
effect
it
on
for
you.
me. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I went in expecting I don't know what, and I don't know, I was underwhelmed.
I think with me, I had no expectations. I kind of scratched my head because I was thinking to myself, well, he's fresh off The Dark Knight. What the hell's he going to do here? Sci-fi.
Yeah.
What the hell's he going to do here? And I absolutely loved it. It's funny that you mentioned Casey Affleck's character because, again, one of the subliminal messages there is about humanity at its worst.
Yeah.
You know, the backdrop of this movie is it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
We're at our precipice. What's the word I'm looking for?
Precipice.
Precipice. We're at our precipice. The thing about climate change has happened.
Yeah.
There's no crops left. The only thing we have is corn. We're going to die. This little girl is the last generation. What do we do now? And you have Casey Affleck's character, which is that dark, cynical aspect of humanity that's so stubborn.
Yeah, for sure.
He's going to kill his own family to not change his ways. That's what the subliminal message was there. And there's a lot of those undertones throughout the movie that I really loved. So yeah, no, that's definitely my number one.
Just a whole heck of a lot of stuff to digest, and on multiple viewings, you can dedicate a little more time to doing that, and I think that's what contributes to the just the core of that movie. Is in one viewing, you guys are completely right. You can't get everything that we've gotten from 5-6 plus viewings of Interstellar.
At least, yeah.
You can't get it all in one, and so it does. If you leave it at one, yeah, for sure. I don't want to sell you on it anymore, Morgan. I know you're going to watch it, and you're going to have a lot to say.
Look, if there's
I'm playing
not
devil's
enough
advocate.
there to grab me the first time around, I'll admit I might have missed something. I mean, because
Yeah.
sometimes watching a movie, it's all about your mood.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because I've always thought, I can probably enjoy some piece of every movie that's ever been made. I can
For
probably
sure,
find some
yeah.
redeeming value. As
You
long as
didn't
you're gonna-
find anything in Interstellar?
It's a good movie, but not a great movie.
Okay.
Okay. And it's funny because are we going to get hit on the honorable mentions? Because
yeah.
My number one.
Yeah, start us off. Kick
One
us off.
more.
Oh yeah.
Oh, one more.
I'm sorry, Heather. I'm so sorry. We've
Wow.
been on Interstellar for an hour.
an hour and a half.
So yeah, so sorry.
Let's talk about something different. And this is probably a movie that I don't know if anybody at this table has even heard of.
Oh damn.
It's called Only Lovers Left Alive.
the hell is that?
Oh, let me
It sounds like Interstellar.
It is. So it's Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston, and they are basically centuries-old vampires.
Whoa.
Yeah, and although the word vampire is never used in the movie,
Dang.
Whoa.
That
Um,
sounds good.
he lives in New York. I
Anton
think.
Yelchin.
Yes, yeah, he's
Rest
like
in
a
peace.
yeah,
Oh,
he's like a
man.
go-to runner for Tom Hiddleston's character. It's directed by Jim Jarmusch, who just did The Dead Don't Die.
Don't die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got a dark humor.
Kinda,
tone to it?
yeah. It's a beautiful love story. Is really what it is. So Only Lovers Left Alive. So he lives in Detroit actually. I think because they talk about Detroit, and she lives in Tangiers, and yeah, and so they have these phone calls back and forth, and you can just feel like the chemistry between them, even though they're continents apart.
Are they talking
You
on the
know.
phone?
Yeah, they're doing like video chat or FaceTime or something.
Oh.
Yeah,
What the?
and so he's kind of this melancholy. He's a musician. He's got guitars
Wright.
everywhere. Yeah.
Hey.
Yep, there
Hey-o.
we go.
Jeffrey
Okay,
Wright
I'm
mentioned
in.
number 2.
I'm in.
And Mia whatever. Yeah, she plays Tilda Swinton's sister, and Anton Yelchin is kind of this like runner guy for him because he doesn't ever leave. He's this really famous musician. Like his music is out there, but nobody knows who he is.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and well, he does it on purpose. He doesn't want anybody to know who he is. So
Sounds
Anton
familiar.
Yelchin's
Yeah.
character is the one that goes out and obtains all these obscure things for him. So he gets all these old, vintage, beautiful guitars and all these instruments that he has in his house, and he also requests that him to get a wooden bullet.
Where did you see this?
Yeah, how did you
movie?
hear about this?
Like,
Okay.
Because I have never
So,
even heard the
I know.
title.
I hadn't until this past year. So What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yeah.
I
the
love
TV
that show.
Yes, the TV show.
The movie's great.
The movie is fantastic. It's one of my favorites. So the TV show has been on, this last year. And there's an episode towards the end of the season where they have all of these cameos from other vampires. And it'll
Oh my
be
gosh,
like,
sounds amazing.
it's so funny because it'll be like Wesley Snipes is
Oh,
on
so
it.
they're deep fakes?
No, they're in it, but he
the actual actors.
the actual actors are there, but the Wesley Snipes one, and they all go by their name, so he's just Wesley.
Oh.
But he is video chatting because he can't come into the country.
I see.
And it'll be, and the original vampires from the What We Do in the Shadows movie are in it. They make reference to Brad and Tom who can't make it,
Sure.
and all these things.
That's funny.
And Tilda Swinton is there as a vampire, and I'm like, when did she play a vampire?
I see.
And I had no clue, so I had to go back and look it up, and that's how I came across this movie, and I absolutely adore it.
Well, awesome.
That must be one hell of an indie movie. I'd
is.
never heard of the damn title.
No, me neither, and it's so good. But
a lot of Jim Jarmusch movies seem to follow that trend. Yeah.
So
Ghost Dog starring.
So she's in She's in Tangier, and he's just having this crisis. Like he's just this melancholy, whatever, and he just doesn't he hadn't told her that he's suicidal, but he has Anton Yelchin's character get him a wooden bullet, and he specifies, it has to be. It has to be it has to be this specific caliber, and it needs to be the hardest wood you can find.
Dark comedy.
Yeah, and all this stuff, And so she travels back from Tangiers to spend some time with him, and they just, I don't know, they have really good chemistry. There's not really any kind of villain to the story. It's not like there's any major plot point really necessarily, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. And they don't feed off of people. They go to these doctors and get blood bags and
like Daybreakers.
Basically, yeah. And
underrated vampire movie.
And I think
it's a whole nother episode.
I forget what type of blood it was, but it was the good stuff. It was some specific blood type, And Jeffrey Wright, in fact, plays the doctor that he goes to.
Jeffrey Wright.
And every time he goes to him, he calls him some random name of some pop culture doctor.
That's cute.
I can't think of any of them right now, but it's just a good movie. And then something happens that I won't spoil for you guys since nobody here has seen it.
Is it a good vampire movie? Meaning tonally, is it something you can watch in the Halloween season and get something from, or is it more of a?
I don't really know. It's the most vampire movie I've ever seen, probably,
Dang.
but. It's
even more than the little vampire.
yeah. Well, like I said, they don't use the term
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, they don't use the term vampire at all in the movie. It's just really implied because they're drinking blood, and they drink it out of these little chalices. I mean, they have this whole thing,
Interesting.
And it's really not until the end that it gets kind of to the dark side of things a little bit because of their circumstances. Oh, John Hurt is also in it. He plays Christopher Marlowe, and the whole time he's making jokes about how he wrote Shakespeare's plays. It's amazing.
Not the only mention
yeah.
of John Hurt
No.
in this decade, for sure.
Yeah, John Hurt is amazing. Was amazing, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's a good movie.
JustWatch.com. You can find anything streaming on any platform. Any movie you'd like to see,
Yeah.
JustWatch.com.
I guess that's our new sponsor, Sasha. Thank you.
Right?
I'm trying. Those guys are pretty cool. I've been using them for 5-6 years,
Yeah.
and they
So
saved me a lot of money at the video
Right?
store.
I highly recommend it.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna literally find this damn thing tomorrow because I'm so frustrated. I've never heard of the freaking
Right?
thing.
I know.
Have you
well,
seen
I had
Dead
no
Don't
clue.
Die?
Yes.
Okay, so is it a good double feature? Because we just watched Dead Don't Die, and I liked it for a lot of reasons, but I didn't like it for a
Yeah,
lot.
I'm kind of the same way. I was a little skeptical because I saw Dead Don't Die before I saw this one.
Tell me Adam Driver's character doesn't remind you of Morgan in that movie.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Well,
he's
that's not
Morgan
good.
with a smart car.
I really liked the Dead Don't Die,
what's
but
wrong
I
with the
feel like
smart
this is a
car?
much better movie than that was.
Okay, good. That's saying a lot.
I feel like there's more of a storyline to this, even though it's just really kind of like this is a moment in the lives of these people.
Cool.
Yeah.
No Bill Murray cameos?
No,
Okay, because he's in a lot of Jarmusch's stuff.
I don't believe so. I don't remember seeing him. Cool.
All right. Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions real quick. You want to start, babe?
Kick us off, Maggie.
Oh, okay. My honorable mentions are The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's a Wes Anderson movie, by the way. Snowpiercer, which they're about to do a show about, which I'm
Still haven't watched that.
not too happy about.
Snowpiercer came out in 2014?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. There. You know what?
I might just leave all this and take a shot for every time Sasha gets a year
Not
wrong.
at all. I have a lot of things to say about Snowpiercer. I just thought it was 2013 for some reason. Well, I think it did get a Korean release in 2013, and I bootlegged the DVD because I was so looking forward to that movie. But shit.
I'll mention it in 2013. No, it's an honorable mention. It's not top. So.
All right, cool.
Imitation Game was on my honorable mentions, and another one, Coherence.
Yes.
Which I know is on a couple
that's
of
on
y'all's
our
lists.
list.
That's totally on my list.
You want to talk about it?
Yes, Coherence is a movie about parallel universes, kind of.
Yeah.
Like
Multiverses.
Yeah, multiverses is a better word for it. It's about this group of friends that are hanging out.
Like we are now.
And just they're doing like everyday stuff. They're hanging out. They have to go to their car. And then they hear somebody outside, and they're trying to figure out who it is, or somebody's going out a back door to go smoke.
What's going on in outer space?
Yeah, and then the movie
There's
kind
like a
of
meteor going.
That's right. There's a comet.
Yeah.
Just like there's one going now.
Yep.
Yeah, they're all. But I don't. It's a crazy damn movie.
It's a mind trip.
It is.
It is such a mind trip.
And it's even more interesting if you kind of do a little bit of research about it, because a lot of the actors and actresses, they did not know the whole story. They were only given bits and pieces, and so they acted scenes not knowing where things were going. Yeah.
Ooh.
And like this movie, the very beginning of it drives me crazy. I absolutely
conversations?
hate it. Yes, they are so annoying and just
because they're real.
yeah,
They're
awful.
real and they're boring.
They're awful.
They're
And,
boring conversations.
And it's really funny because Brendan, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Xander, right?
Xander, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time at the beginning, he's talking about, oh yeah, I was on this really popular show, and I had this character, and blah blah blah. Roswell, exactly. So it's already like this multiverse from where we really were, you know. And
so it sets you off on that track
does.
intentionally because the movie,
Nicholas
and I don't want to
Brendan,
spoil
I think is his
too
name.
much of this one because this is one of those movies where if you just start talking about it, you make it past that first threshold of spoilers,
Yes.
and then it unfolds the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I don't want to do that.
No.
But the multiverse aspect and the fact that everything's not right, it gets set very early on, that tone, and it spirals out of control throughout the movie and becomes one of the better time travel multiverse sci-fi movies I've seen.
Yeah.
In a while, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of good to be taken from it.
It was very nearly in my top 3.
Coherence was
Yeah,
tough
same.
to chop out of the top 3 too.
Yeah.
I chopped it because of the
Emotional aspect.
No,
Well, because of the dialogue at the beginning.
Yes.
That was my
Oh,
reason.
the
Oh.
annoying people,
Yes.
or why I chopped it. There are a lot of, and granted, this is part of their acting chops, but then again, it's not because they weren't really acting. They didn't have much to go off of. They
Yeah.
were organically creating conversations as real people, and that's probably where all that Roswell talk and the fact that
Right.
he probably dove into his actual real life to create the dialogue of that movie, and it was not interesting. But
It wasn't, but the
It
rest of the movie
captivated
is
me.
so good. Like he recommended it to Sasha recommended it to me, I don't know, a while ago
a
now.
while ago.
And I almost turned it off because I was so
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was so annoyed by the dialogue at the beginning.
Early on.
Yeah.
And then you're like, sorry. Oh, God.
And I was like, what the hell is Sasha watching? Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I stuck with it, and now it's almost in my top 3 for
The
the
knock
year.
on the
Crazy.
door. It changes
Yeah,
everything.
It
the
really
knock on the
does.
door.
And you don't know where it's going, and it's a great movie.
It's a confusing movie kind of to watch in the best way because you're like,
Yes.
what the fuck is
Yep.
going on?
And you're learning what's going on as the characters learn
yeah.
what's
Yep.
going on, and those are the best kinds of movies because you can't play I'm sure all of us at this table want to try and predict stuff as the movie's unfolding and be like,
Right.
oh, I got a sense of where this is going, and you kind of get a sense, but the details of this movie are what sets it apart, and all the little
Yes.
nuances. They're like, whoa, shit, they just took it there. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. That's easily on my honorable mentions as well. So glad you mentioned
sure.
it.
Yeah.
For sure.
What else do you got, Maggie?
I think those were it. I was just really excited to talk about Coherence. Yeah,
for sure.
Because it was the other 3 movies in my top 3 have all those emotional attachments.
Yeah.
But Coherence, I just remember, like, I was surprised at you heard of it, Sasha, because usually whenever I talk about Coherence, nobody knows
Amazon
what the fuck I'm
Prime.
talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and so to hear that you've seen it, I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to somebody about this movie.
Yes.
Well, like we saw it, Miguel and I with our friends Rachel and Maurice. They actually are the ones that suggested that we watch it, and I'm so glad that we watched it like in a group.
Yes. Oh
Because
man,
it
what a
was
setting.
so
Yeah.
crazy.
What a
Oh
setting.
man,
It's one of those movies that does send off like synchronicity signals. That's why I mentioned it here. Like we're all sitting at a table, we're all having an organic conversation. This is exactly how that movie starts. There happens to be a comet passing by Earth this week that's coming from interstellar space. I might add, interstellar mention there. Anyways, but there's a lot of like real life in this movie, but then there's a lot of like crazy shit, and the blending of those two subgenres, like real drama conversations plus sci-fi, it's not easily achieved, and this movie does it exquisitely. So yeah, that's why it's on all our lists, I think.
Yeah.
yeah.
Except for McGill.
Well, I think except for Morgan.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Oh
it.
yeah.
Have you
good.
heard of it before?
Nope.
Now
I think it's on
Okay.
Amazon Prime.
Oh man.
It is.
If you're in the sci-fi mind, it's
Sounds
a
good.
really good episode of X-Files.
It really is. I just watched it again recently.
Yeah.
And like,
Oh, I
it's
wanna
so
watch
good that I forgot the annoying dialogue at the beginning.
Yes.
Because I was watching it the second time going, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
no wonder. But then it's so damn good.
Yeah. Improv sci-fi, and it should be done more, I think,
Yeah,
as
right?
far as...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my honorable mentions for your
Nice.
information.
Hey.
Yeah, I can't forget that movie. I might have forgotten the name over the past few years, but that movie about the parallel worlds and how they interact that's still in my head to
Yeah.
this day.
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's the spoiler alert within the title itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then Birdman's also an honorable mention, and I had to, man. I love that movie. Guardians of the Galaxy is also honorable mentions. I don't care if this is so much of a pop answer. I don't give a shit. I love Mockingjay.
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
disappoint. I remember most too often.
Part one.
Part one. Yeah,
Yeah.
part two I think is the next year. It's not in my top three, but it's still something that I really love because I was not disappointed in. I was such a huge fan of the books, years before. I was really you're sitting there watching, and if you're a fan of the books with your fingers crossed the whole damn time, don't cock this up, and they didn't. Granted, the second movie, like the book, is the best. It's I think it's 4 stars compared to this one. But I loved it. I was not disappointed at all. So that's my last honorable mention is Mockingjay.
Dope.
Are we full?
Yeah, so I'd have to, for my honorable mentions, I'm going to have to go with Days of Future Past, X-Men.
Really?
Ooh, that's a
Yeah.
fun
Where
one,
they
yeah.
undo every bad thing they've ever done.
Pretty
with
much,
X-Men.
yeah.
Another
I
time
just-
travel movie.
I like seeing the two casts kind of coming together. I
That's
thought
great.
it worked really well. Not a perfect movie, but none of the X-Men movies are, to be honest. But I enjoy them, and I'm in love with Patrick Stewart, so I'll watch him in anything.
Facts.
Ian McKellen.
Yes,
Ian
Ian
McKellen.
McKellen as well,
Yeah.
because they're the cutest bromance ever.
Yes.
And then I also have Winter Soldier on my list.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody said it because Winter Soldier was a 2-month prior to Guardians of the Galaxy release. Came out actually maybe more. It came out in April, sorry, and then August was Guardians of the Galaxy, and Winter Soldier was. We've talked about it previously in this
Yes.
group. Hell of an MCU movie, and just set the tone for the entire direction of all the Marvel movies. And then Guardians of the Galaxy added to it, and all the seriousness and the action and the tone of Captain America was sort of complemented by James Gunn in a more emotional, deeper sort of sense with Guardians of the Galaxy, and the comedy there too. Not that Winter Soldier doesn't have it, but yeah, Winter Soldier came out that same year too. What a year for Marvel movies.
Yeah, it was a strong year for sure.
Only 2 honorable mentions?
Yeah, everything else on my list has been mentioned already. So
Sweet.
This is where I fall apart. I got a shit ton of honorable mentions
for it.
2014. I'll breeze through them real quick. I've got The Guest, which is an Adam Wingard movie starring Dan Stevens, where he plays a fake imposter military companion.
I love that movie, and I could
it's
try
a
to
good
get
movie.
Maggie to watch it.
All right.
No, I have seen it.
Did you like it? Though?
That is a
No.
fuck of.
That's my point.
So it's a good movie. Honorable
I thought
mentions.
Sinbad was in that.
In what? The Guest?
That's a 90s.
Oh, that's
version.
House
That's
Guest
House
Oh,
with
Guest.
okay.
Phil Hartman and Sinbad. But we know where your mind is. It's slapstick comedy. And The Guest has some comedic elements to it because it's a funny story.
It's self-aware.
Yeah, it's self-aware. It knows how cheesy it is, and it goes from a sort of a good-hearted like who is this guy stranger mystery into balls out like MK Ultra driven military control movie that really changes tone in the last 30 to 45 minutes and sold me in that last 30 to 45 minutes because it was a lot of fun to watch.
And it's retro wave.
In its retro wave, the music, the vibes, the colors used in that movie, definitely worth a watch. That's The Guest.
I like that IMDb has it as action, comedy, crime, horror, mystery, thriller.
It's all over the place. It's all
Oh
over
yeah,
the place.
romance animation.
It's the
Right?
Manchurian
I know.
Candidate meets House Guest with Sinbad.
Interesting.
It really is a good movie. And moving along, I've got The Purge Anarchy on here because
I like that.
the Purge movies for the decade are super underrated in my opinion. I don't like the first one at all because the hype for that movie and the concept of The Purge, right, is the one day a year where you can all crimes legal, and all we get to see in the
As a
first one
house.
is a fucking home invasion movie. And then, hot off the heels of that, I think a year or a year and a half later, The Purge Anarchy comes out, and the trailer promises everything that people were expecting in the first one, which is a view of what's actually going on in the streets. Grand Theft Auto, live and in person, in movie format. It just tapped into a lot of, I guess, guilty pleasures that I wanted to see as an action movie, cinema, like buff mixed with horror. I wanted to see like Purge Anarchy as a kid growing up on the big screen. I wanted to see it, and I never got it, maybe to a lesser degree in some movies, but Purge Anarchy does it all the way. It's like Twisted Metal or Manhunt or all the Rockstar games rolled
On
into
screen.
one. On screen, and the characters are cool. Frank Grillo's underrated as fuck.
No,
in that
he's
movie.
awesome. Man.
He's great in that movie. So, yeah, it was a hell of a year for him, too. He was in Winter Soldier. So, yeah, good year for Frank Grillo. Moving on. As above, so below. That's my next honorable mention.
Yeah, that's you like that too, man.
This is a horror movie that it resonates with me on a different level because it taps into one of my favorite literary works of all time, which is Dante's Divine Comedy, and specifically the Inferno aspect and the descent into hell. There's a lot of mentions of it in the movie. It is a trip. It is a found footage version of Dante's Inferno, and hopefully that should sell you on it. The Equalizer is the next one. That's
I like
Denzel
that.
Washington.
Denzel.
I love that movie for a lot of reasons. The dialogue's great. Also, the last 30 minutes are like a rated R Home Alone. And so I really enjoyed watching him set traps up in a Home Depot and gnarly death scenes in that one. Next one is an animated film that was not mentioned, and I'm a little shocked because it was really good. Big Hero 6 came out in 2014. Yeah,
it
and
was a
Big
good
Hero
one.
6 was pretty good. And
Very good.
it tapped into a lot of the sentimental feels that I don't get from animated movies because I look past it in animated movies. But there's a lot of...
Oh, I cry like a baby in animated
Yeah.
movies. It's awful.
Oh yeah, same.
So, not much there. I mean, Big Hero 6... Then It Follows, another horror movie that deserves an honorable mention.
I have It Follows on 2015.
Shocker, I got the wrong year. Okay, moving on. 2014, Big Game is the second to last mention that I'll have. This is a Swedish-American movie with American actors made by a Swedish director that follows Samuel L. Jackson after the crashing of Air Force One into a Swedish forest, and Samuel L. Jackson befriends a kid who lives in that forest, and it's an escape movie from that point because Sam Jackson is the president and he's trying to be He's attempted assassinated by shooting down of Air Force One, and then Sam Jackson survives it in very unrealistic ways. But then this kid helps him along the way, and it's outdoorsy adventure film with a lot of cool action sequences.
I'm
And-
sorry, Sasha. You are correct. It Follows was in 2014. I don't know why it showed up in.
Not much to say
2015.
about It Follows. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in that movie, and there's a lot of subliminal stuff going on. And
brilliant.
It is. Maybe there is a lot to say about It Follows.
Have
but,
you two seen It Follows?
I haven't.
have
It's
not.
been on my list of
It has
Holy
ones I
shit.
want to
it's
see.
a 96% Rotten Tomatoes rating for
Oh,
a
then it sucks.
freaking good reason. No, I mean it's
Oh.
it follows.
Look, if Rotten Tomatoes is over 90, it's probably not very good.
Oh, come on.
no,
And if it's below 10, it's probably one of the greatest movies ever made.
That's the Holmes versus Watson.
argument there. That's
yeah,
why you loved it.
syndrome.
You're such a rebel,
Yeah.
Morgan.
IMDb has it as 6.8,
What,
so
It
that might
Follows?
be okay.
It
Yeah.
Follows?
Yeah.
No, it's. I remember watching it, going, "This is one of the most original horror movies I've
Oh,
seen
man.
in so many years."
good.
It reminds me of nightmares I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
and someone made a fucking movie.
Yeah,
about
the
it.
visuals of those movies are very nightmarish in the fact
Oh.
that all of a sudden there's a guy in your house who you don't know how he got there and he's
Yeah.
knocking down your door.
Yeah, he's coming to get you.
beating it
It
down
is
with his foot.
huge.
And he's gigantic and he's naked. And that's
Scary.
that's pretty intense and pretty scary.
This
You're
is
trying
subliminal-
to stop smoking. Chantix, I think,
You guys,
does that
you
to
two need.
people.
I'm very curious about what you two of all people would
Would
think
see-
about it because
It
I
Follows,
think
yeah.
you two are smart enough to pick up on the subliminal messages.
Oh,
so
you'd like the
appreciate it more
premise.
than me.
So the
Sounds
premise
like I
is
would.
the premise is an STD that is basic. Well, this is the superficial.
Yeah.
This is the front layer of the movie. It's zombies that are really representative.
It's like an entity, isn't it? Really?
It's
'Cause
an
it can take on
entity
different forms.
that spreads like an STD does from person to person. And we get the perspective of the people that aren't infected with it. And the rest of the movie is basically like the closing in of that
Thing.
thing. Hence the title, It Follows. Like it's sort of a viral outbreak movie in a way, and not necessarily just a straight up horror movie. There's a lot of elements of disease and what disease can actually how quickly it can spread and what it does.
Basically, if you have it, you have to have sex with somebody to get rid of
to
it.
pass it along.
Yes.
Hence why it's like considered STD.
I didn't want
I
to
wouldn't say viral outbreak.
spoil
It's-
that
it's more
part,
of a-
But yeah,
Oh,
that
I'm
makes sense.
sorry.
No, it's okay. That's the big spoiler.
It's a more of a sexual chainmail kind of thing, maybe.
yeah,
maybe.
there you go.
It's-
Pen pals.
Yeah. But the delivery of it is great. The
Yeah.
visuals are so creepy and well done. Like there's so many subconscious things that it taps into about the fear of strangers coming after you. Maybe somebody you
Oh,
do
yeah.
know. And there's all those little. It kind of makes fun of the old "Don't Have Sex" videos of the 80s and 90s, and you don't know what era this movie takes place in because there's TVs that look like they're from the 70s, but they're on their cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's in a world where we don't know the exact year. It has kind of a nightmarish feel to the whole thing, but it's freaking great. One of my favorite movies, horror movies, of the
Nice.
last 20 years.
Yeah, and
man.
there are multiple memorable sequences in it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's just a lot of stuff that sticks with you. It Follows should be on everyone's list this Halloween season if you haven't seen it because it's a creepy fucking
Yeah,
movie.
it's one of those that I've always heard good things about, and I've wanted to see it. Horror movies are not my first choice ever, so it's hard for me to want to sit down and watch it, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
You would like this one because it has a really good sense of irony. And I think that if you watch it by the third act, I absolutely loved it. So
Yeah.
you guys,
Nice.
I really, really hope you watch it this week because I want to hear what your
I'll
opinion is.
try.
both of
I'll
you.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just got one last one, and this one won't take much time because it's a straight up zombie movie. But it's a little lesser known, and I would regret it if I didn't mention it. This is a movie called Wormwood: Road of the
Yes.
Dead. You've seen this?
Yes.
Oh shit!
I don't know.
Somebody else has seen this. That's awesome.
It's good.
I thought I was the only one, but that's even better.
Nope.
Okay, so Wormwood is a MadMaggs zombie movie. Yeah, it is.
Yep.
It's post-apocalyptic. The color palette is very Mad Maxian, but it takes place for the most part in like a forest and on a highway, I guess, in the woods and the highway. But it's got a viral component to it where
It was another Australian film,
yeah,
wasn't
it's
it?
an Australian exclusive movie.
Wormwood.
Wormwood with a Y. So instead of W-O, it's W-Y-R-M. Wormwood, Road of the Dead. It is start to finish just a whole heck of a lot of fun, and it does zombies the right way. It does humor the right way, and it does have a ton of gore, blood, violence, and it's all
Sold.
well done. It's all well done. So yeah, that's about it.
What about you, Morgan? Do you have honorable
Yeah,
mentions?
I had a couple that had hadn't been mentioned yet. I liked Divergent quite a bit.
I had it on my list. I didn't.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't have you on that one.
I never would have saw that.
Didn't have the older gentleman on the teen rebellion vibe, but it's a good movie.
The sci-fi element, I think.
Yeah.
that,
The sci-fi
the world
element
that
is
that
good.
got me
Yep.
on
I only watched it
Divergent.
because it's Shailene Woodley. That's the reason I watched it.
Fair enough.
Well, I watched it because I read the books, but
I liked the books, and I really liked Divergent, and then they went really off track and didn't even
Ass
finish
Virgint
the series, which I
and
didn't
Yeah.
like
all the shit
others.
virgins.
But I really liked the first one.
yeah, I
Yeah,
really liked
first
the
one.
first one. Yeah, the second.
Sorry, they
No.
diverged after the first
They
one.
did.
Oh goodness! Oh man!
That's not bad.
They walked
That's
out
not
of the
bad.
third one.
Oh, I hated that. Allegiant? Oh, what a piece of shit.
Second one was terrible too.
Second
Yeah.
one was worse, but it was not as bad as the third. That
Yeah.
series just got worse.
I liked Gone Girl.
Hey, didn't get
Solid
mentioned, huh?
thriller.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised
That's
it didn't
good.
get mentioned. Yeah,
That's David Fincher too. Yeah,
Yeah.
my bad.
I liked Fury, World War II movie
Oh yeah, the tank movie.
with the tank. Yeah, good movie. I don't know if it was great, but it was a good movie. A little disappointing in the end, but that's okay.
That's why they're honorable.
And another
Yes.
military movie is American Sniper. You know,
Yeah.
Okay.
thought there was some interesting elements to that, and
Chris Kyle's story, right?
Chris Kyle's story. Yeah,
The fake baby sold you.
no,
Deep dive
There's-
into American Sniper there.
yeah,
Mm.
no. I mean, I don't know. I thought just an interesting story. I like
Fair enough.
I like the desert storm type stories that come out. Like
Yeah.
HBO series Generation Kill was great.
Oh, okay.
And so anything that kind of goes back, it's a good story.
I'm 30 minutes.
I
I've
don't.
been in-
Sometimes they'll take stories like that and they'll shove them down your throat with American Pride and all that stuff, and I can see why people won't like some of that stuff. But yeah, for that was all right.
I've been 30 minutes into American Sniper for 5 years, so I don't know that it's one of those movies.
FX and I don't finish it.
Yeah.
I always started. I'm like,
fair
oh,
enough.
this is good, and then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
press pause, go get a drink. And
Chris
I
Kyle
never
actually,
press play.
he came to our Hastings whenever I worked there. Really nice guy. So
And one more, and I have to. Adam Sandler had a movie that year called Blended.
That was actually good.
And it was a fun movie.
It
I
was.
thought, yeah, it was.
Oh,
it's
is
a good
this
little comedy?
the resort?
Is this with
movie?
Jennifer Aniston?
No, it's not with Jennifer
No, it's
Aniston. It's with
Queen, is Queen Latifah in this?
Who the
no,
hell comes on?
no,
No.
It's Queen Latifah. in
Queen.
it?
No.
Wait a second.
Wasn't it Cameron Diaz?
No, it's his
Um,
normal female counterpart, Firestarter.
Drew Barrymore.
Oh, that's right, Drew Barrymore.
But they go to a tropical resort, correct?
Well, the premise is like they go on this date, him and Drew Barrymore, and it's a terrible date, and so he works for Dick's Last Resort. Drew Barrymore's best friend is dating Dick, and something happens. They were going to go on this great African trip. They end up
Right.
going to Africa, and then Dick and can't go, and so Adam Sandler gets half the package, and Drew Barrymore gets the other half. And Adam Sandler has 3 girls, I think, and
Something like that.
Drew
Yeah.
Barrymore has 2 boys, and it's kind of like a Brady Bunch type thing.
It is, but it was a fun movie.
But it was
Yeah.
fun. It's
Freaking
funny.
Shaq comes on this?
Yeah, that's who
Yeah.
I confused Queen Latifah with Shaq.
Shaq and
Okay.
Queen Latifah.
dare you?
Let me explain.
Very different.
Let me explain. It's the comedy relief that they provide in supporting roles of these types of movies. And for whatever reason,
That's
Queen
true.
Latifah's been in something similar to Blended. I'll remember it someday, and I'll be like, ha, see, I told you guys. She was in a shitty role in a shitty Adam Sandler movie. But I can't remember what it was. Yep. So, good choice.
All right.
Yeah.
Way to wrap
That
up
was
2014.
2014, the year
14.
of Interstellar.
Whoop
Yes.
whoop.
And not the year of Snowpiercer. We'll get to that in 2013.
We'll see them.
Yeah, baby.